Hello everyone, I'm Tyler Edlin, and thank you for watching Brush Sauce Theater Episode 7. In this episode, I'll be picking up where the last one ended, and in case you missed it, I covered thumbnail sketching and composition planning, really. So I'll be adding just some values to those, kind of what I did in the very first episode of Brush Sauce Theater. This will be more or less an extension of that. So I hope you enjoy and stay tuned. Alright, so I have these 4 thumbnails right here for this upcoming book cover I'm working on, and what I like to do first with these is just make a quick layer mask. And now I'm setting out a 5 value planning method. So I just make a dot with like an opaque circle brush, and now I just use those to color pick and add in the values. It just helps simplify things and move them along quicker, instead of always opening up the color wheel. Now I'm just, of course I like to eliminate the white in the scene, so I'll start with the neutral gray, which is about the 50%, the middle dot. Now I'm going to try different combinations throughout all these little scenes. Now they're all essentially the same. They're all about, the monolith or the obelisk in the center with some like mountains and a forest around it. And I'm not sure which one the author is going to go with, but I'm going to present him with a few different options. And so the monolith there is going to be the focal point, and so I will find as many different variety ways as I can to make that stand out from the rest of the scene. Therefore, I'll probably do what I can to increase the contrast in or around it to draw the viewer's eyes to it, which will basically be the objective with all of these scenes. Get the viewer's eye to look right in the middle there. I mean, it probably does with this scene naturally anyway. It's not the most complex of subject matters or scenarios, but I just like to further emphasize what is going on through the use of light. And so you'll see I like to try different approaches to lighting, where either the forest in the back will be really dark, and the subject matter up front will be better lit, or the other way around, where the background's kind of hazy and light, probably more so neutral, and then to contrast that, I'll have the subject matter be really dark and pushing forward. And so right there, so that's a great way to start right there, is just with 3 different values, and then you can push and pull those in one direction or the other to make things pop out and work. Now I'm not doing anything tricky here. This is a video more geared toward beginners who are having difficulties planning out their scenes. And let me tell you, through my experience, this is probably the best way to do it. Do these little thumbnails, probably like 2 inches tall or wide, whatever format you're going with, and just use like the out-of-the-box Photoshop brushes and just plan the values. And it should look ugly and crude like this. All my paintings start this way pretty much. And honestly, don't get discouraged too when you're working up scenes along the way as well, because the truth is, no matter what my end product looks like, my scene or my paintings for the most part look very ugly and crude for a majority of the painting. It's not in the last couple hours that things kind of really tighten up and come together. But it's also important to note, if it's readable, if your image is readable at this level, this crude and rudimentary, then you're in the right direction, because it'll just be more powerful, and you'll be able to understand things, and things will work out well if you just kind of clean and push up and push it along in the pipeline. So yeah, I think I'm going to go with a couple variations here on this top right one. I think that's the one that'll be the author will go with here. So we'll present a couple more varieties of this and explore the different options for those. And so I redrew that one 3 times, and I added, by the request of the client, they wanted some like dragon bones around it, like a rib cage or something. And so now I added that into the element, and I'll further just kind of see what I can do with these values structures to see what will make the most interesting combination, to me anyways. Now I'm going to attempt to do the solid 3-value rule here. So, light in the front, dark in the middle, gray in the background. It won't be until I probably decide which one I want to use, I'll push it further. Just trying to cut every little bit of time out of the equation as I can. And sometimes a lot of these are having to do with not overthinking something. I mean, this looks like there's a lot of thought going into it, and on some level, to a degree, yes, there is, but you just don't want to procrastinate with it either. You just want to at least get this part of the process rolling, the simple stuff, and then you could take things further if you have interest in doing so in terms of starting a picture. So it's just about getting the ball rolling. See, these are all just show you different varieties of a way you can achieve them, and I ended up coming with a fourth one. And now I'm going to show you, I did a couple other just quick sketches, probably about 15 to 20 minutes each, just to kind of explore the mood. And I'll basically combine what I did up in the thumbnail with the general mood of the piece here into one final scene is what I'll shoot for in the end. So it's not supposed to be a bright and colorful one. Probably something typically that you normally see me do. This one's going to be more atmospheric and a bit darker, like kind of like a dark fantasy setting. Now I'll show you just an example here from this painting. A full color, and then when you desaturate and take all the color, everything is still perfectly readable. And I think everything will fall in place it does for me once I have the values planned out. And even as you can see, once you take the color out, you can still read everything perfectly fine just as the values, and that's what you want to aim for. Alright, and in case you missed it, here are the thumbnails I presented last week, and we're going to be going with a take on number 4, and it was reworked to this, which is still really loose, and now I'm just going to add some value in it to kind of plan out the lighting. Alright, so in a similar fashion to what I just showed you, I'm going to immediately kill the white on the canvas and just tone it a bit. Now I just do that with a basic airbrush, and then I slowly rotate the sketch to give it a slightly more dynamic feel. It always does that, especially in the comics, when you have a more dynamic angle on things. And so I'm just going to be blocking in the ground with, these are all basic round brushes. Nothing fancy. I'm just going to get since I didn't sketch out the scenery, and I kind of did that on purpose because I just wanted to play with it a bit at this level, I'm going to just suggest maybe he's like in a forest or something. So that's the approach I'm going to take to this. I'm basically going to have the attention drawn up closer to the frog's face, so my goal is to remain a bit of a neutral background, kind of mid-tones, stay in that range, and then I'll add some real deep contrast up by where his face is. And this is all in one layer. It's set to normal. This is a normal layer, and then above it I have the drawing, which is on a multiplier layer, and that means I can just the lines will bleed through, so I can kind of see where the forms are with the drawing. And now I'm playing. The great design can always be figured out through silhouettes. So that's how I'm starting this, and I do a lot of illustrations that way as well. See, right now I can read it. It's just a frog with a sword standing there, and it's only till now I'll go back in with and I do this on a different layer so I can play with the lines a bit. And I generally only make layers in terms of that for like special effects and then just to play with stuff. And then I usually merge the layer down, which I think is Command-Shift-E on a Mac for a shortcut. If you're into those, they do save a bit of time once in a while. And so now I'm just going to play with the shape language of the trees. I don't want them to be overly happy type of trees that you've probably seen in several of my images. This I want to go for a bit more atmosphere. And that might even change too. I'm going to do, when I'm done this even, I'll take it further and I'll just play with color comps, which means I'll just drop different color schemes over this to see if I can get the mood to change, and that ultimately might end up altering the design of the background. But the real point is just to kind of play with things and to toy with ideas, so to speak, at this level to see what works and what doesn't work. I'm trying not to get overly attached to anything at this point, which means I have really no problem scrapping this at this point if it betters the image in the long run. Like I think the head's fine, but I believe I'm gonna change that head. I'm gonna tilt the angle of it and have him be looking a bit more to the right. And I'm not doing this enough, but I do recommend to flip your canvas horizontally more often than what I'm doing. It will still help you see things a bit better and clearer. Just as long as you keep things simple like this, you can push and pull the forms and without wasting too much time if you have to change the position of like an arm or something. And this is just, I'd say, vaguely suggesting where the light's going to be. It's how you can like take such a simple image where guys is standing here and really kind of sell that concept. Like, what can I do to make this look, like the least bit exciting? Show the viewer that I have some interest and energy in this. I once read somewhere, if you're, kind of like asleep and low on energy when you're making an image, the viewers won't have, they won't get excited about it either. So I'm trying to put a certain amount of excitement and energy into this illustration, so hopefully it will carry through and, people will like it as well. And so sometimes I just go back and soften edges a bit with like the airbrush. That's what you kind of see me did around the ground, kind of like fogging it out a bit. And I'll work the forms cleanly over that later. What I'm going to have to do, and I might talk about it, I'm not sure, later on, I have to get reference to this. I'm no frog expert in terms of their texture or their skin or anything, so I'm going to have to do some research, on my time and figure that out, because the real trick of being an illustrator and is to fool all your audiences, your art directors, everybody, is that you're an expert on the subject matter you're depicting. And that's really the name of the game right there. And you can't, and I've kind of been learning this as I go too, you can't charge client time for your research. That really has to be done on yours. So eventually, the more you do, the less you have to look up. But yeah, I generally try to research as much as I can with any image and not feel like I'm just eating away my own time, because ultimately I'm just bettering myself from it. And every sequential illustration on the road will benefit from the research I do on any subject matter. So hopefully my mind's muscle memory will be increasing as I go. I was just kind of playing with the hard lines of it now. See, I'll look up like some medieval boots or some leather armor or something just to get, because I can bullshit it up to this point, but if you're really gonna paint a nice character image with some details, like, they should be in the least bit authentic, and I'm no expert on that. So alright, so this is coming to a conclusion as far as I go with this. What I generally like to do next is either trace, kind of lower the opacity on this and draw a more finished drawing over this to plan out everything to use as a reference throughout the remainder of the painting, or I'll do color rough. So it doesn't really matter on the sequence of those two, but I do generally take one of those two steps next. So I'm not sure which video I'll follow this up with. It'll be one of those. So thank you for watching and subscribing, and take care.